Lesson 16 is a very important lesson, finding slopes and equations of lines. You will use this, the rest of your algebra career. So this will be very important because it'll only build on this foundation. So big lesson, but we are going to talk about the slope-intercept form. Now the slope-intercept form is represented by the variables y equals mx plus b. And we're gonna get to all those variables in a second, but to start with m is very important. M is referred to as the slope. Now I know m doesn't make sense to be referred to as slope, doesn't have the same letters or anything, but m refers to the slope. Within the slope, that is the rise over run in a line on a coordinate grid. In order to find the slope, what you have to do is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And that fraction will end up being your slope. Just always remember y is on top because y is vertical. This is your y-axis, this is your x-axis. And if we're going rise over run, we want rise first, run second. So in example 1 it says find the slope of this line, and it gives us the coordinates 1, 5, and 3, 9, but the line continues to go on. So if we're finding the slope, well, we have our coordinates here. We need to find our y2, our y1, x2, and x1. I'm going to call this x1, x2, and then x1, y1, then x2, y2. And then we're just going to plug it into our formula to find the slope. It's very simple. If you have two coordinates, you just plug it in this formula and you got your slope. So y2 is 9, y1 is 5, so 9 minus 5 over x2, 3 minus 1. Solves to be 4 over 2. Reduce that to be 2 as your slope. So that is how you find the slope in the slope-intercept form. And in order to graph, you will always need the slope and the b. Now what the b stands for is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where this line crosses the y-axis. So say this line kept going and say it went right here. Now I won't always give it to you, sometimes you have to find it. But if it crosses at that point, we would know that the y-intercept is 2. And so that would be our b. That would be our y-intercept that we would plug in to the formula. But we'll look at a couple practice problems here. Looking at example 2, 2a, it says use this graph to write an equation for the line. Okay, I'll make the line. And this is all it gives us. So we have to write out y equals mx plus b. We need the slope, and we need the y-intercept. Well, we can't see the y-intercept in this picture. We cannot see exactly where it crosses the y-axis. However, we do have two coordinates, and with those two coordinates, we can find the slope. So we do, to solve for m, rise over run, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We plug in our coordinates. We're going to do 11, our y2, minus 5, y1, 4x2 minus 2, x of 1. So therefore our slope ends up being 6 over 2. Reduce that, m equals 3. I'm going to put that up here, m equals 3. So get a glance at that. I'm going to erase that so I just clear up a little bit of room here. Now that we know our slope is 3, how could we find the y-intercept? Well, we haven't talked about the y and the x yet. All that the y and the x are is coordinates that are on the line. It is one set of coordinates that is on the line. So here it gives us 2, 5, and 4, 11. Both of those coordinates are on this line in the graph. So we can actually use either of those. I'm going to go ahead and then we can plug them into the x and the y. I'm going to use 2, 5 since it's smaller numbers. Now remember, when the coordinate is graphed, the 2 is the x and the 5 is the y. So what I need to do is plug 5 in for y. We already know our slope of 3. X is 2, then plus b. So we have y, 5, slope 3, x 2, plus b, our y-intercept. And then we have one variable, so therefore we can solve. 3 times 2 is 6. We subtract both sides. Rounds out. -1 equals b. Now that we have our b and our m, our y-intercept and our slope, we can show the equation of the line. Now when you write out the equation of a line, you actually leave y and x. You always leave those. You don't actually write out a coordinate on the graph because, or on the line in the graph, because there's a bunch of different coordinates. So there could be a bunch of different y's and x's. However, there's only one slope and there's only one y-intercept. So y equals 3x minus 1, since it's negative, would be our answer to A. Y equals 3x minus 1. And that is how you do, that's how you write the equation of a line. In B, it makes it easier. It says write equation of a line with a slope of 2/3, and it passes through -2, 4. So if we know our slope is 2/3, our letter for slope is m. So y equals 2/3 x plus b. We've got the slope so far. Then it says it passes through -2, 4. Well, that's not on the y-intercept. Y-intercept would actually look something like x would be 0, and then y would be whatever. So therefore, we would have to plug this into our y and x values. Our y is 4. So 4 equals 2/3. Our x is -2 plus b, and then you would solve. -2 times 2/3, -4/3 equals 4. Add the 4/3 to both sides. So 5 1/3 equals b. Kind of getting cluttered here. But then you could write your equation of the line would be, you know, your slope is 2/3, b is y/3, so y equals 2/3 x plus 5 1/3. And that would be your equation. You can write that improper as well. Now let's look at the other side of it. Say it gives us the equation and it wants us to graph it. Example 3a, it says graph this line. Well, we need to create our graph. I'm going to put 5 tick marks every way. And it gives us -5x plus 3. When you graph, what you want to do is start by looking at the y-intercept. Our y-intercept here is 3. What you do is go on the y-axis up 3. Since it's +3, go up 3. And then you do a slope. We know our slope is -5. Now it doesn't look like a fraction, but -5, we can call that -5 over 1 equals m. So rise over run, we can go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then over 1. Or we could imagine this negative sign being there, going up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then to the left one since that one's negative. And I missed the dots, but that would be something that your line would look like. So that would be A. Let's look at B. 2y equals 2y minus 4x equals 7. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. The first thing we got to do is isolate y. We got to get y by itself. So what we want to do is add 4x to both sides. Negative and positive cross out. So we would get 2y equals 4x plus 7. I want to put the x first because the slope and the x coordinate always come before the y-intercept. So from here, we got to get y by itself. It's still attached with the 2 by multiplication, so I have to do the opposite and divide. Divide everything by 2. So you would get y equals 4 divided by 2 is 2, x plus 7 divided by 2. 7 over 2 or 3.5. Now we have it y-intercept form, slope-intercept form, and we can graph it. I'm just going to graph this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y-intercept, 3.5, somewhere around there. Slope is up 2 to the right 1, if you want to see it when it looks like this. Or, remember, 2 negatives make a positive, so we could go down 2 and then to the left 1. Should actually be here. And there's my beautiful graph, or beautiful line. So that is how you do slope-intercept form. So make sure that you know that you got those down.